Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are connecting from today. Thank you so much for joining our first 2026 Guest Experience Benchmark webinar of the year. So happy to have you here today, and for Bruno and I to be doing our third webinar when it comes to
Yes.
our Guest Experience Benchmark reports. Hi, Bruno.
Hello, everyone.
So my name is Jessica Kurtz. I'm the Global Product Ambassador here at Reviewpro Reputation, part of Shiji Group. And with me today here is Bruno Saragat, our sales engineer, and most importantly, the brains and the mastermind behind this amazing report that now has over, 10,000 downloads now, Bruno?
Yes, over 10,000. Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Congratulations. So, for anyone that is not aware of the type of webinar that we'll be doing today, it is regarding our guest experience benchmark report. This is a report that comes out on a quarterly basis and once a year. So, we did start this webinar 2 quarters ago. And so, this will be our third webinar today. But for me personally, the most exciting because we're going to go through an entire year of data instead of just a quarter. So I think it really, really changes things. You get to have a perspective of all of 2025 and really get to see how different regions around the globe performed when it comes to guest experience and how those did compared to global statistics. So,
Absolutely.
Bruno, I wanted to ask how many regions are included in the report?
We included 8 regions this time, so we added a new
Okay.
one.
Okay, so 8 different regions compared with global statistics. And how many reviews are we analyzing for the report?
We are analyzing over 42 million reviews.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah,
So the report includes this yearly one, 42 million reviews analyzed, 8 different regions. And if you've downloaded it, you know it's a big report. I'm not going to lie, it's around 107 pages, if I'm not mistaken. But that's exactly why we're doing the webinar today. It's to really give you the key parts of the report to help you understand how to analyze it, how to dissect it, and what really to focus on. Um, I know that we have people here that are customers of ours that have hotels all over the world. I know we have customers here today that only have hotels in certain regions. And of course, we also have attendees that are not Reviewpro customers, and everyone is welcome. But as we're going through this, what I really, really want you to take away today is how do the statistics that we show compare with your hotels and your brands around the different regions? So when we focus on Europe, when we focus on the Americas, when we focus on global, take a look at these numbers. Obviously, you'll have the recording after, and go back into your Reviewpro accounts and go back and look at how do those key metrics compare to my brand and my hotel? Because that's when you'll really be able to see, are we outperforming the region? Are we underperforming? And what tools like Reviewpro can help me and continue to help support, enhance the guest experience. So that's really what I wanted to say for the introduction. Other than that, your microphones, you will notice, are all on mute. However, we really, really do want to read your questions and answer them at the end. So please drop them in the comments, in the questions, and we'll be able to answer those at the end. And if you want, in the meantime, while we're getting started, if you want to say hello in the chat, what role you have in your organization, what brand or hotel you are representing today, we would love to look at that. Okay, so I think that's all for my introductions. I am known for having pretty lengthy introductions, but I think setting the tone of the reason of the webinar, the reason you're here today, and what I really hope that you can walk away with, I think it really deserves that. So that being said, Bruno, before we dive in, anything you want to add?
no, I think that you said it correctly. The idea has always been for this report to guide you through the trends and being able to benchmark yourself against them, whether you're working on an individual property or for a group or anything, in order to be able at the end to beat the trends and understand what is driving the market upwards or downwards, what are the kind of changes that we are able to observe and to mention in the report, so that you know whether this is a trend that is affecting you as well, or you can consider yourself an outlier, which is really important in order to straighten things up if things are not working as well as you want them to be.
That's a really good point. And for everyone here, I don't know, this report started in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And just to let everyone know, it comes from the feedback of our customers saying, it's great to understand how I'm performing compared to myself last year or compared to my brand, but we want to know more regional. We want to know more global. We want to know, like Bruno said, if our pain points, if our key challenges, and if what guests like the most is similar across the region, or is there something that only us as a brand need to focus on, right? So that's a really good point. So Bruno, I think on behalf of everyone, before I get to the next slide, thank you so much for this report. I know that this helps thousands of hoteliers around the globe really benchmark against themselves, make improvements. We get the feedback all the time, and I'm excited to show some new pages in the report that were not in previous versions. So let's dive in. Today's agenda, the way we're going to do this webinar today is we're going to break it down into online reputation, which also includes the global review index, review volume, average response time, because we know the importance of management response when it comes to online reputation. Then we're going to head over to semantics, which is obviously all the sentiment analysis and the text that you are getting from your guests. What do they enjoy and what could you improve based on the reviews? City benchmarks, which is the exciting new teaser I want to show you later on. And then survey data, which I think, right, Bruno, is one of the most requested parts of the report.
It is.
We want to know more about the surveys. Yeah. And so we will always start with some global data, and then we're going to go into the different regions, mostly Europe and the Americas, but sometimes based on some key findings, we thought it was interesting to go in different regions to be able to point that out. So Global Review Index, just a reminder for anyone that is not aware, the Global Review Index is Reviewpro's proprietary score based on an algorithm to be able to analyze the online reputation of your hotels and brands at any given time. And of course, for anyone here that's a client, you know this inside out already, what the GRI is. But to anyone that might not be familiar with it, when you hear GRI or Global Review Index, it's that online reputation score that hoteliers base themselves on to know how they're doing compared to the competitors and the market. So tell us, in 2025, Bruno, what are we looking at here on a global level?
Well, we are looking at a very positive year, all in all, because we saw the GRI rising to a new record level. We also saw, you see at the bottom of the chart, the difference between the past year's review volume and this year, so 2% increase. Very positive news, considering in the past years we had some decline. But at the same time, it is becoming more apparent that the growth at star category level is different. So it is becoming it is changing, and the differential is increasing. Because on one side we have the GRI at global level is driven by the growth for coming from the 3-star and the 4-star, while we see a slowdown for the 5-star. This is not about that's not coming for all the markets. For some of them, we will see the differences. But looking at the review volume and looking at the tourist arrival new records that we recorded in 2025, we can appreciate that there is there are reasons why the 5-star hotel are slowing down. And one of them is exactly the review volume, because contrary to expectations, in 2025, the vast majority of this review volume growth was driven by the 5 stars. While the 3-star lost review volume, the 4-star were pretty much in line with last year, is the 5-star that are driven most of the review volume growth. That means also is a proxy of higher occupancy, is a proxy of higher pressure on the operatives. And you see, and we will see in the other regions, that there is a kind of greater effect on the 5-star that driven by seasonality. This is one of the important things that is, in a way, slowing down the year-on-year growth coming from the 5 stars.
Okay, okay. Well, what I think is really impressive and really a huge shout out and kudos to all of our clients here and all hoteliers around the world is, like Bruno was saying, we've broken a lot of records in many regions around the world for tourist arrivals, but the global review index continues to rise. And that is something we usually don't expect in hospitality, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we want full hotels, we want high occupancy, but sometimes we know that comes with the sacrifice of losing standards or expectations going higher, and we cannot really provide with the resources we have. But it's unbelievable to see that 2025 was a year with all-time tourist arrival records and the global review index continuing to rise on a global level for 3, 4, and
Absolutely.
5-star hotels. So I think the main message is very positive there. And a lot of clients ask us, do you see drop in review volume? Actually, this right now tells us a 2% increase compared to last year in volume. So very exciting to see more occupancy at your hotels, more volume, and the global review index continuing to rise. So if it's the same trend for your hotels and your brands, really a huge congratulations. Bruno, do you want to cover anything down here for global or?
Well, this is only reinforcing the fact that all the major review sources have been witnessing a kind of increase in their indexes year on year and over the past 3 years, with the only exception of Citrix, but is a minus 0.1. So this is confirming that the general trend is very positive across all the major sources.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so Europe up in the left-hand corner, if you're looking at the reports as well. What's the difference with the global?
Well, here we see a massive seasonal effect. You see that the blue shadowing is the review volume, is indicating the review volume. And every time there is a peak in review volume corresponding to peak season in Europe, we have a corresponding kind of drop in the GRI. This drop in GRI is true for all the star categories, but is more accentuated for the 5-star because after that, while the 4-star and the 3-star are able to bounce back, the 5-star are not able to do that with the same kind of increase that we saw for the 4-star, and this is driving the slowdown because during the year, the kind of gain that we can see are being driven in the 5-star are not then being recovered after the peak season. This is one of the major differences that we see between like some of the region that we see later on and the European region.
Okay. And just in case for anyone here in the European region, if you did see your volume drop a bit, as you can see down here, Europe did, not so much this year compared to last, which is really good to see, only a 0.1. But in the past 2-3 years, there was a bit of a drop in volume in Europe. So if you see that, that's normal. But the good news is from last year to this year, only a very tiny drop, right?
Yeah. It is also important to mention that the United Nations recorded a 4.4 increase in tourist arrival in Europe. But in this case, we didn't see this increase translated into an increase in review volume. This is interesting because the European market is the biggest market in the world. And this is kind of surely affecting the performance. But again, it is nice to see that the GRI has been able to grow kind of irrespectively of any sort of compounded effect that we have been seeing.
Okay. Anything for the sources in Europe?
No, again, this is clearly stating that the major sources are positive. So if you are not seeing in your property or in your group the same trend, that should be a way of looking at what to focus your attention to and being able to level things up and make sure that also that source that is causing you a decrease in the GRI because the its index is going down can be on par with other sources. It can be on par with the European market if you want to benchmark yourself against that.
Okay, great. And so North America, I see something a bit different here, right?
Well, North America is very peculiar, but this is something that is happening at kind of America's level. What I mean
Okay.
is that also the Central American market and the South American market will have the same exact pattern. And what I mean by that is if you compare the gap between the 4-star market and the 5-star market, so the GRI of these two categories, the gap is very small. Okay.
True.
It means that in the Americas, for multiple reasons, we have a very strong 4-star segment and a relatively weaker 5-star segment. Why is that? If you look at the evolution of the last 3 years, you see that the market, especially the 5-star segment, is more affected than the 4-star segment by seasonality. And every time they gain in a certain period of the year some GRI volume, then they go down and they are not able to recover what they are gaining in the first part of the year. So this is in a way slowing down the GRI growth for the 5-star segment to a halt. It's grinding to a halt because you have to think that over the past 3 years, the GRI for the 5-star segment only grew 0.27 points, almost nothing. On the contrary, the 4-star segment appears to be kind of less affected by seasonality, is able to maintain more consistency across the year and across the years, okay? And is able then to gain more at the end of each period that we are analyzing, okay? At the same time, we have to say that the North American market has been very resilient. We have a 1% increase in the international tourist arrival. At the same time, we have 2% review volume growth. And considering the last 12 months of the turmoil that went on in that market, that is still going on in that market, the market has been very resilient because all in all, it has been able to grow. If the volume of review has been able to grow. So the only thing that we can mention is like a small drop around May. There's something that was unprecedented because we have never seen in the past year such a huge drop around May, but then the market was able to recover.
Yeah, I think you said there's a lot more national tourism in North America, right? And maybe they leave more reviews. Maybe it's more in their culture to leave reviews. So that could also be maybe due to the 12% increase over the last 3 years. Maybe the national guests are writing more reviews.
Definitely,
okay, and finally for Central America?
Yeah, we decided to add this new geopolitical region because, as you can see, there are differences compared to the North American market and the South American market. The Central American market does not have one peak season. It has multiple peak seasons, and so also multiple shoulder seasons. But what was even more striking is the very small gap between 5-star and 4-star. Again, the 4-star market appears to be in the America very strong, so strong that sometimes it gets closer and closer to the 5-star market. In this case, we have a market that is able to grow, to post a solid growth. We are talking about 0.8, so one of the best markets all in all. Also, the 5-star are able to grow, but all the star categories in this case are heavily affected by the seasonality that you have, the shoulder and the peak season that you have during the year. This is very important because what we see later on can show that there are star categories, there are markets where the effect of the seasonality can be in a way thwarted by achieving more consistency.
Very interesting. I think also a big discussion that Bruno and I were having, and I don't know if you have this in your brands and, you know, in different hotels around the world, is I think we're all aware and we agree that in different regions of the world, 3, 4, and 5-star have different meanings, right? And I think that's very important. Also, when we see these kind of graphs, and I'm curious if you want to add in the comments or you have questions about this. I know that in the Middle East versus in maybe South America versus in Asia, what is considered a 3-star, a 4-star, and a 5-star are different criteria, right? And so this sometimes also, of course, has an impact when we look at charts like this. So just something important to keep in mind because it's so crazy to see how in Central America, the 4 and 5-star are so close. And finally, before we move on, the last slide on the Global Review Index, because I think the Middle East is a fascinating market. What can you tell us about 2025 in the Middle East?
Well, the Middle East alongside Asia in terms of 5-star segment, luxury segment, is the best performing market in the world. And you can clearly see that by looking at the outstanding performance, the outstanding consistency, no effect of seasonality here. The 5-star segment is able to grow in a consistent way across multiple years, and the massive gap between the 4-star and the 5-star segment. So we are almost talking about two different worlds here. So we have a 5-star segment that is able to achieve a continuous growth consistently, whilst on the contrary, you see that the 4-star and the 3-star are very affected by, are hugely affected by seasonality. You see that the GRI moves ups and down, something that doesn't happen for the Middle East. This is what a very consistent market can achieve when the performance is able to provide services in the best possible way, irrespective of the occupancy rate, irrespective of the kind of pressure that the operatives are put under. So that is a testament to the quality, massive quality of the Middle East market. This is why we wanted to show you this, to be able to benchmark this against the North American and Central American market, which are behaving clearly in a different way.
Very interesting. I mean, I've been to Dubai. I'm sure many people here in the audience, it's a testament of the hard work throughout the year, the attention to detail, the quality, the amount of staff, I think, that's available in the hotels there. It's really something else. So for anyone with hotels in the Middle East, or if your brand operates from there, really a huge kudos. Try to compare your metrics to this to see where you stand in your hotels. But a 91.1% average for the 5 stars in 2025 is just unheard of. It's unbelievable. So very, very cool to see. Okay, so I think that's it then for the GRI. Let's jump into semantic analysis. So really quick for everyone here, just a reminder, and obviously our customers know this, but always good to be reminded. The scores are a great way to benchmark you against yourself in a previous year, against your other properties in your brand, and against your comp set. So we need the Global Review Index. We need this score and this numerical metric. But if you've seen my webinars, if you've heard me speak of this, or you come to our trainings, we always talk about the fact that those scores cannot be improved without knowing what your guests are actually saying, right? There's only so much your GRI can jump from an 89 to a 90, or from a 90 to a 92, if you're not reading and going into detail about what your guests are saying. So if you are our customer and you don't really take full advantage of semantics, please take some time to dig into it this year. Reach out to our customer success team, play around on the different semantic pages in the tool. But it really is your cheat sheet and your gateway to knowing how to improve your scores. Because it's easy to say, we have a goal of achieving a 93% GRI. That's great. But how do you know what to work on? How do you know what to improve, right? So semantic analysis is key. And we only have one semantic slide for today, but I think it's really valuable. So what do we see here when it comes to semantics for 2025, Bruno?
Yeah, in the first chart, we wanted to show that all in all, we can confirm what we have seen coming from the GRI. So there is a increase in the percentage of positive mentions for all the major languages we are analyzing, with the exception of Spanish, and with the exception of other languages. We didn't list them all, but we are kind of clearly see that the vast majority of them is positive over the last 3 years, not just over the past 12 months. At the same time, the team has been working hard on improving the granularity of data, because, as you said, Jessica, there is no one thing that is able to make your GRI grow. There are 100 of them. And the more granular data we can provide you in the tool, the better you will be able to prioritize what is something that is affecting you negatively your GRI. For this very reason, you see that in the past we were using the term experience. Now we are using stay experience in order to split the experience into stay and other experiences. We are also showing food and dining and non-food and beverage, because now, again, we are increasing the number of categories, the number of concepts, in order to provide our users with more data to understand the nitty-gritty of what is not working as well as the global average. And talking about global average, you see that room traditionally has been the category that is able to potentially negatively affect the GRI the most. But within this category, at regional level, there are big differences. We have been talking, we said before about the North American market. North American market, its growth has been capped by a huge negative effect coming from the room, because contrary to what you see at global level, at regional level in North America, there are more than 3 points. So the room is able to, in a way, limit the growth or kind of take out some of the growth by 3 points instead of about 1.8 points. Compare this to the Asian market, with the negative effect is only 1 point, and you see a massive difference between these two big markets.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because when I was in customer success a few years ago, all of my clients, let's say I had a portfolio of maybe 30 or 40 accounts, and all of them, like you said, Bruno, had the top negative category room. And I think that makes sense. So please don't be alarmed for anyone here today if it's also this category. It makes sense that it is the most negative category, because it is where we're going to become most picky as travelers. Because at the end of the day, you are paying for the room. You are paying for a good room experience and a good sleep experience, right? So what I think is very interesting is that even though it's the top negative category globally, what Bruno says is so interesting. It varies on the region of how much impact it has negatively, right?
Yeah.
So in certain region, it's the most negative, but it's not a huge impact, versus in another region, it is like you could improve your global review index by 3 or 4 points if you fixed the things in the room.
Yeah.
So once again, we really want to make it easy with Reviewpro to be able to analyze your semantics, not having to do the guessing games. We don't want you and your teams to have to spend your time on what could we improve in the room. No, we're telling you, it's the room, and it is specifically the bad odor in the carpet, or is specifically the fact that the air conditioning does not work in the summer and we are dying in 40-degree heat. Or it is specifically that the bathrooms have not been renovated in X amount of time. So this is great material for you to take back to your management teams as well when you need to talk about renovations and CapEx and, really build some cases. Think about that Reviewpro data and how we can support you with that. So as you can see, we're very passionate about semantics, and hopefully you're all leveraging it. Just remember, it is included for any of you with Reviewpro. So really go take the time this year. And if you have questions on how you can, let's say, leverage that data even further by setting up alerts and reports and anything we can help you with, let us know. Okay. I think that's good for semantics. Should we move on, Bruno?
Yeah, just one small thing. I wanted to say that we have been recording a huge increase in review volume coming from Google. It's the source that have been growing the most. But surprisingly, the percentage of negative mention has been growing as well. And instead, we have a huge raise in positive mention from holiday check. Traditionally, we always had C-Trip and Trip that had the highest percentage of positive to negative mention ratio. And instead, over the last 3 years, we have been seeing the positive mention volume growing and growing from holiday check. The other interesting things to say is that thanks to the huge growth that Google has been able to achieve, for the first time since we are creating this report, Google has been able to generate more mention than TripAdvisor. And this is something very important because TripAdvisor, as you know, makes it mandatory to leave a comment. Google doesn't. And so being able to generate in our sample more than 12 million mentions is something that we have never seen, because just 3 years ago, Google was only generating in our sample 9 million mentions. So now the growth has been really impressive. And for the first time, we see that Google is generating more than TripAdvisor. So you need to consider this in every decision that you take, because surely the mention, whichever the media that will be able to use, will affect the perception of quality that you are able to offer if somebody is using Google to make an informed decision about which hotel to buy.
That's super interesting. So just as a takeaway for anyone here, if you were deciding if you should reply to more reviews on TripAdvisor or Google, I think for this year, Google is the way to go. It's climbing up in comments and in text volume and mentions. So definitely focus on those reviews. And something I want to point out that I thought was very interesting, and Bruno, we talked about it the other day, just to let everyone know, Booking.com will always be one of the sources with the highest negative mentions. And the reason is, if you all know and you've left a review on Booking, and of course you read all the reviews of your guests, they specifically prompt the guest to talk about something negative. They ask you positive, negative. So in a way, it's a bit more fair, let's say, because it's giving the guest the prompt and the option. But don't be alarmed if Booking.com for your accounts and for your hotels also have the highest negative mentions. It's because the other sources don't proactively tell the guest, hey, give me some negative, feedback about my stay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that point because when I saw these numbers so low and then talking to Bruno, it was like, oh yeah, of course, it's because they prompt that. So thank you for enlightening me with that, Bruno. And I think that's interesting for everyone to know as well. And like you said, the Google volume of comments compared to TripAdvisor. So speaking of shares and volume, I think this is one of my favorite slides of your report, Bruno, this part down here. On a global level now first, how do things look like compared to last year, and what are the sources in Europe? And this is good for anyone here with hotels globally and in Europe, North America, where to focus on,
There are no massive changes in the market share. As we said, Google is the one source that has been gaining the most market share, more than 3 points. We have a small decrease coming from Booking.com and Agoda. And then we have small gains from the minor sources like CC, Trip, and Holiday Check. But the market this year has been following the same trend of the past 3 years. There are no major changes. The changes are in the regions because the region behave in a very different way. And that is surprising and interesting to see that. This is why we added this section, because we really wanted to show how massive the difference can be between one region and the other.
Amazing. I mean, Booking and Google, what I think is so interesting, like you said, Booking and Google still taking a huge part. I mean, almost, 2/3 of the market, right, in Europe, between these two, but a little bit of a flip, right? 2% loss in Booking versus 3% increase in Google. So that's interesting to see. And for everyone here that's our clients and you haven't done this or you don't know about it, I just need to do a reminder here, because you see what a big part of your review volume comes from Google and Booking. Please make sure every single one of you have our direct integration with Google and Booking, because it means that you can reply directly from Reviewpro to all of these reviews, which is, if this is the case for you, it's about 70%, 65 to 70% of your reviews are coming from these two sources, and you can reply directly from Reviewpro. It's a free integration. So if you don't have it, please let us know, reach our customer success team. And if you do already have it, I just need to inform you all that we have a third integration as of last month, which is Holiday Check. So you can now reply directly to Holiday Check reviews from Reviewpro as well. And I don't want to give any teasers, but hopefully at least one more direct integration coming later this year. So very exciting to keep announcing that, and make sure you have those integrations with us. So then if we look at Europe, what's the difference with global?
Well, here we have the European market is dominated by Booking.com. And so though Google is growing, though Expedia is growing a little, though Ctrip and Trip are growing a little, we still have around 60% of the review volume on average for the hotels included in our sample are coming from Booking.com. This is close to what we see in some other market like Middle East, but again, at the regional level, we will see in a second that there are huge differences between Europe and North America.
Very interesting. I mean, 60%. Let me go back again one, because so 35% global versus 60% in Europe for Booking. That's absolutely crazy. So it definitely has dominated over the European market. So once again, if you are in Europe, please make sure definitely to have our Booking integration, because on top of being able to answer directly, you'll get some extra departmental scores that you don't have usually. So make sure you do that. But then this is always interesting, because this looks more like a real pie chart to me, with no market, with no source really dominating in North America, right?
Well, North America is a lot more varied. it looks a little like Asia that we will see in the second webinar. There is an kind of a solid performance from Expedia. We will also, from the next edition of the report, we will only include Expedia and not its sister company, Hotels.com, because we will merge, following the rationale, we will merge the reviews coming from the two. But again, we have like the minor sources, the other sources that still have a certain relevance, Yelp and others, which is interesting to see, nice to see. But for the rest, the market has behaving the same exact way as the European market. Google has been gaining market share, as well as Expedia, Lidl, as well as Trip, and Holiday Check. So at global level, the trend is the same, but the market share is massively different from one region to the other.
Okay. And South America?
South America is the fastest growing market in terms of review volume, but at the same time is in a way showing that the real winner is Google. Google is gaining market share everywhere. Google is gaining market share even more in South America. And probably only Booking.com is really losing ground because TripAdvisor, Expedia, and Hotels.com almost kept the same market share. So these reviews are being kind of this change has been coming in favor of Google from the market share that was usually traditionally taken by Booking.com. Okay. But this is a lot closer to what the European market, without the huge preponderance of Booking and now an increasing relevance coming from Google. So that
I was going to say, it's almost like the two of them flipped, Google and Booking in South America, right? With almost 5% drop or 5-point drop in Booking and 5.4 increase in Google. So for any properties here connected today or brands that have hotels in South America, definitely Google something to keep an eye on this year. Expedia grew a bit as well, and Booking.com, of course. For me, it's always relevant because it's also a booking channel, right? It's not just an OTA. It's not just a review source. So for me, Booking will always have relevance. But for South America, it does seem to be dropping in importance or review volume compared to Google. So interesting to keep an eye on that. Okay, I think if I'm not mistaken, that's it for the volumes. Just to let everyone know, we're about a little more than halfway through with what we're going to show. So if you have comments, questions, feedback on the report, if you want us to go over a specific section again, please let us know in the comments. Also, you can always contact us after, of course, but now that we're live and we have Bruno and myself here, if you have questions about the report, anything we talked about, your regions, we're happy to answer those towards the end if you want to start dropping those in the chat. Any questions or feedback that you might have. And that brings me to one of the most important parts as well of today, which is the average response time. I think it's absolutely key to take this opportunity now that we're in a new year, 2026 in front of us, the importance of responding to your online reviews, right? We always talk about this, but there's a few things I always need to mention. You are not just responding to the guest that left the review, right? It's obviously nice to say thank you to them or to apologize if they've had an unfortunate experience, but you're really responding to all the potential guests that are coming to your different review sources and checking what guests are saying and what you are responding to those reviews. So that being said, volume matters and time matters. And that's why we put this slide here, because it's very important to answer in the shortest amount of time possible, obviously with high quality, and to the most review volume as possible, because statistics show time and time again. I think I just read the other day that over 65% of guests are more willing to book a hotel where they respond to online reviews versus one where they don't. So I just wanted to give that introduction before handing it over to Bruno, but management response, especially in this day and age with AI able to help us, whether that is external AI platforms or you are leveraging our AI review responses, which is designed literally to take time off of your team's hands, be able to reduce your response rate, increase the volume of reviews you get to respond to, and all of that while keeping your brand standards high. So if you are using an AI tool, make sure it's always one of quality, a hospitality, focused one. If it is ours, you probably have seen the benefits of that. It saves your team time. And if you want to know more, of course, let us know as well. I think we'll put our LinkedIn, my LinkedIn in the chat if you want to reach out to me for anything specifically. And I can also give you then our customer success team's information. So Bruno, with that being said, average response time on a global level, what are we looking at?
Well, as you said correctly, the outstanding performance that we have been reporting over the past 3 years in terms of average response time gains that all the star categories have been able to achieve should always be considered in light of the volume of response that they have been able to generate. 3 years ago, the 5-star were the best performance. Now it is the 3-star. This is why we say that has to be seen in conjunction with the review volume, because yes, the 3-star are responding faster, but are responding to far fewer reviews than the 5-star. The 5-star are able to reply to more than 70% of the reviews they receive. And this is a very good standard to follow. On the contrary, the 3-star, yes, are faster, but they reply to fewer reviews. So there is a trade-off between being very quick in replying and replying to most of the reviews or a lot fewer. But this is a global level. Again, we will see that in the region the things changes massively. This is why it is surprising sometimes to see that this standard that we can think apply to all the region are absolutely not respected in some of them. And we will show you an example of that. The other box that we want to show you is the kind of department score. The department score are confirming what we see at a GRI level. So we have generically a good performance better than 2024, with the exception of cleanliness. But cleanliness is already an outstanding level. We are talking about an index of 93% for the 5-star, 90% for the 4-star. So rather than seeing these as a drop in performance, it really looks like a bit of a ceiling. So the performance cannot go even higher because it is already really high for all the 3-star categories. This is why there is a sort of slowdown. But you see, for all the others, including value, which is surprising to see considering inflation and all the other variables, the performance has been exceptionally good.
I think the advantage of 3-stars, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think the advantage is sometimes the expectations are not as high as for 4 and 5-star. So when they do go out of their way and when they do make the guest feel extra special, they really think that they're getting a better value for money than maybe at a 4 or 5-star that needs to work harder for that 5-star review, and that needs to work harder for that recognition, right? Because if I book a 3-star, my expectations are not the highest. I'm thinking, you know what, I'm spending X amount per night. I want a comfortable bed, maybe some breakfast. And then if all of a sudden they greet me by name or they walk me to my room or there's special amenities, all of that, it makes me think, wow, for that price, I'm going to continue coming back, So sometimes the investments you make in hotels are not really costly, sometimes it just takes training, certain standards, and you can make the guest feel special in so many ways that don't really necessarily need a big budget behind it. So really kudos to all 3-star properties out there. Great to see that you have the biggest drop in average response time. Obviously, like Bruno said, 3-star hotels are not answering to so many, but it could also be that 3-star are not really investing in maybe AI models, right? They're still answering maybe manually, and decided not to choose all the reviews. So that's really interesting to keep an eye on. So that was global. What are we looking at when it comes to management response for North America?
North America behaves in the exact opposite way. So we have the 5-star that are not just those who are taking more time to reply to reviews, but are also replying to fewer reviews than the 4-star and the 3-stars. So the North America market, as we said before, is some sort of an outlier. So it stands out for multiple reasons. And this is one of the most surprising of all, because you see that the 5-star are able to reply to fewer reviews than even the 3-stars. So whilst at global level we have one trend, one performance, North America is totally different from all the other markets, which is surprising to see because it's a very mature market. You may expect that to behave as the European market or the Asian market, and instead we don't see this trend at all.
Interesting. And okay, so that was it for the management response, right? I think you just wanted to show how different the US market was, the North America market there.
Absolutely.
So as we're coming towards the last two categories of the webinar, I think this is exciting. City benchmarking is something new that we haven't really shown in the quarterly reports. And there's two exciting parts to this. There's city benchmark and city ranking. City benchmark is what we're going to show today. We're going to show the top 10 cities for a few of the major regions. But then if you download the report, which we'll put in the chat as well, if you haven't downloaded the report, we also have city rankings, which is the top 10 hotels themselves in a lot of the major cities. So if your hotel is on there, congratulations. Really unbelievable to see that your hotel is one of the top 10 in the world or in your region when it comes to Global Review Index and guest satisfaction. So let's take a look at the city benchmark for some of the major regions. Let's start with Europe. What do we see here for 2025 when it comes to city benchmarking?
In this case, we see that the mid-size level cities are able to outperform huge tourist hubs like Barcelona, like Madrid, and other major cities, of course, like Rome, Paris, and others. You see that top in the ranking for the 3-star, it's Krakow and Warsaw, and then we have outstanding performance from Venice and Florence for the 4-star and the 5-star hotels. Lisbon is in between because it's performing very well across all the different categories. But we have, yes, massive differences between like big tourist hubs that are suffering probably from like a huge percentage of a huge occupancy rate and pressure for the operatives. At the same time, we have the mid-sized cities that are really well, been performing very, very well, especially with this sort of differences that we see between like tourist city like Venice and Florence that have been performing well across all the star categories.
So interesting. I really like your reflection on the mid-size because sometimes, you know, the huge cities, it also means mass tourism, right? I mean, this makes me think, I think for next year, I want to visit some more of the mid-sized cities because everyone always thinks Barcelona, Madrid, Paris, London. But obviously they receive millions and millions of tourists a year. And that also means, you know, guest satisfactions might not always be the highest. So very interesting to see your analysis of the mid-size here. And if you have hotels in Budapest, Florence, Venice, 5 stars, really unbelievable. Curious to see if your GRIs are similar to these. If you're in Italy, Venice and Florence, or in Poland, really great numbers here. So what do we see for Middle East then?
Well, Middle East is kind of showing that Jeddah is by far the city with the best performance across all the star categories. We've also got Abu Dhabi in second place, but the performance is good all across the different part of the Middle East, whether it is Saudi Arabia, whether it is the Arab Emirates, whether it is Qatar. The performance is really high, as bit as well as what we were going to see for the Asia Pacific market. So in Asia, there are a cluster of cities that are performing very, very well, especially for the 5-star category.
I heard that, yeah. I mean, I think we've heard more and more about Saudi Arabia and how they're coming up with hospitality and tourism. It's crazy, the plans they have there for the hotels they're building and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump over here. And North America then.
Well, North America has some surprising results. As we said, we have cities like tourist hub like Miami and Las Vegas, which are at the bottom of the ranking. And then we have that the 4-star and the 5-star are dominated by Canadian cities like Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. And instead for the 3-star, we have Washington, D.C. top in the chart. But for me, what is more surprising to me is like a huge city like tourist hub like Miami is at the bottom of the ranking. Probably reflecting a bit of what we said, like the pressure, the constant pressure on the operatives is in a way affecting the performance and is kind of pulling it down compared to other minor or less touristic hubs.
I think it's probably also due to the different types of guests that maybe go to Vegas and Miami versus Toronto, Chicago, DC. This could
It
also
could be,
be,
yes,
and
yes,
maybe the volume, right? The type of guests and the volume, I think, in these big
yeah,
cities. But at least, I mean, they're still in the top 10, which is great to see. But amazing to see some of the Canadian cities at the very top in all categories. And Chicago, I think, is very proud of their service and their hospitality in the
definitely.
US. So that reflects that. Okay, and finally for South America.
Yeah, South America again. South America has performance, a very good performance coming from Santiago. Of course, we have Lima, that probably is the best performer across the different star categories. And then at the top of the 5-star hotels, we have Sao Paulo. So Brazil is topping the luxury market, whilst Bogota is at the top of the 4-star category. Again, it is a bit more varied than what we have seen for Middle East, for instance, but it's good to see that the performance is very good in different parts of this huge region.
Very interesting. Sao Paulo. And then, okay, perfect. So that wraps up the city benchmarking. If you want to look at more regions and see if your cities are on there, please make sure to download the full report. If you also want to look at if any of your hotels are part of the top 10 in certain regions, I thought that part was really interesting as well. And to wrap up our webinar, I think it's very interesting to go into the surveys because, as I mentioned at the beginning, this was never part of our benchmark reports a few years ago, but based on the feedback from the industry that the online reputation and semantic data was really good, but that you were still missing that survey piece to really be able to compare how are we performing with our post-stay and in-stay surveys compared to others in our region or globally. So that gives the introduction to the final part of our webinar. Please make sure if you have questions or comments about anything we just showed, you want us to repeat something or go in more depth about something, let us know. We would love to answer your questions while we're here live together. And we will start with global survey behavior. And just a quick introduction before giving this over to Bruno. If you've been a Reviewpro client for a while now, you know we've always had survey conversion data, which basically was always telling you out of all of the guests that you've sent a survey to, how many actually received it, how many bounced because of an incorrect email or because of any other reason, and then how many actually filled out the survey and submitted it, right? So that was kind of the, let's say, more basic or initial conversion data that we were giving you. But then after working with a lot of you and getting more of your feedback, you wanted to also understand what's happening when they actually open the survey. So let's say that you've received it, your guest has opened it, but who is abandoning it? Who is dropping off right at the beginning versus halfway through? What questions are they dropping off from most likely? How long does it take to complete the survey? Who is actually completing it versus, dropping it, abandoning it, and starting it? All of this is what we call the survey behavior page. You all have it included in your surveys. If you haven't spent enough time on there, I highly recommend it. We have many success stories where our clients have actually taken the data from that page to make changes to their survey and seen really positive conversion rate and results. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that your first 10 questions were all mandatory and they were all like lengthy comment box. This survey behavior page was going to tell you people are dropping on your third question. They're coming to your survey and they are so annoyed that you're making them write 3 big paragraphs that they're dropping by this time. So together with our team, we work with these clients to analyze your survey behavior data and say, you know what, if we move these 3 questions around, or if you remove the mandatory from all the questions and only keep it to the core questions that you want feedback on, you will see that you will gather more conversions. So just wanted to give that introduction. Now we're going to go into the data, but I really want to take this time to recommend everyone to spend time on survey behavior page. If you don't know how to read it, we have some great documentation. Otherwise, our team's available to help. And don't be afraid to make changes to your survey, especially it's January, it's the beginning of the year. I always say this, you don't need to stay with the same survey because it's the way you've always done it. It's the way you've always had the questions. Feel comfortable to get uncomfortable with your survey, play around, test things. We also have clients who try something for 6 months and then they say, no, we missed the old survey, and you can change it back. So I just wanted to say that. And my final thing on survey, because I'm very passionate about this point, do not have questions in your survey that you're not going to take action from. This is my number one rule to everyone here. Please take this into consideration. Look at your survey questions and think, do all of these answers provide me with data that I need to make improvements in my operation or in my rooms or in anything? If not, if it's just fluff and nice to have, don't waste your guests' time because you're not going to take action from it. And guess what? It's only going to make more people abandon your survey and you're not going to get more conversion rates. So that's my little speech on surveys. It's one of my favorite products that we have. It is so powerful if you know how to leverage it. And yeah, that being said, let's look at some global statistics for the survey behavior and conversion.
Yeah, very quickly here, the one thing that we have to say is that over the past 12 months, we have seen an increase in the completion time, unexpectedly so, because we have to remember that every kind of lengthening of the survey comes at the expenses of the completion rate. So the more you add, the less completion rate, the less conversion rate you will get. At the same time, it is interesting to see that the drop-off rate was really stable all across the different regions of the world, all across the different kind of star category. But that there is instead a huge difference between the abandon rate between the in-stay and the in-stay categories. So you can see that while the post-stay has a sort of stable abandon rate, depending on how they use the in-stay survey and the commitment, so the value for money that is behind any stay in a 5-star category, the commitment is massive, is a lot bigger in the 5-star, so there is less kind of fewer respondents that abandon the survey without even starting it. On the contrary, for the 3-star hotel, the abandon rate is 24%, or more than twice what you see for the 5-star. In my opinion, in our opinion, that should be used as a data point in order to prompt the 3-star to make sure that they check in. They also say that this is really relevant to improve your stay and not just the next stay. Because otherwise, you lose a bit of a meaning of having an in-stay survey if you don't drive like this, the message, which is a message that is going to help your stay get better.
As a take, yeah.
No, please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add that as a takeaway for everyone. What you're saying is, make sure that the teams tell their guests that when they receive the in-stay to really provide their feedback through there, so that they can improve their stay while they're still on property, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The conversion rate, so the second part of the page instead is showing that the level of the percentage has been stable. It didn't change much. What is surprising to me is to see that the hotel are replying in an average of 5 days. That is a lot more than what we saw for the reviews. We need to remember that you are kind of nurturing a one-to-one relationship when you are replying to a survey. So this is at least as important as replying as fast as possible to a review. Not less important, but as important as to reply to a review. This is why we are also developing an AI assistant that will help you kind of craft a survey response, because we really believe that the faster you reply, the more you have the chance to convert a guest into a loyal guest or to turn things around when things are not working well. This is massively important. The European market is basically following the same trend that we saw for the global market. The European market is by far the market with the highest conversion. But again, also in Europe, which has very high standards, the average time of response is more than 5 days at the European level, not considering the 5-star at 4.3, but still more than what they take to reply to a reviews. And this is probably what we really want to stress, that the importance of replying quickly to any survey, whether it is positive or negative in this case.
It's a really good point, because I said earlier that when you're responding to an online review, you're not just responding to your guest, but all potential guests. And maybe that's the reason that many of you don't always respond as quick to surveys, because it's not as important maybe out there online. But I think responding to post-day surveys will convert more loyal guests. That's really my recommendation. It's a one-on-one email communication, like Bruno says, and you asked them to provide all this feedback to you. So it's just nice to then give them back a response in a timely manner, because they're taking time, and we saw how much time, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, right, per survey, to give you their feedback. So it's just as nice to be able to say thank you. If it was positive, can't wait to see you again. Any promotions you want to share, maybe. And then, of course, if it's negative, trying to change that situation around, even though it is in public, like on a review. Yeah. But it is really what's going to convert, in my opinion, those loyal guests. So let's wrap it up with NPS. I think we all are interested. I know you all have your Net Promoter Scores at the top of your heads for your hotels and brands, but then it's interesting for you to know, how does that compare with other regions and globally? So any big takeaways, because we're running a bit out of time, Bruno?
Yeah, very quickly, we have been asked multiple times about the NPS trends. They behave in line with the GRI. You see that at the global level, there is a certain effect of seasonality that can be perceived, but also we saw that in 2025, the NPS was able to reach new record level for the 3-star, the 4-star, and the 5-star. The European market, that is the second part of the page, is showing instead that the effect of the peak season is stronger for the 5-star. This is why they have been growing. The NPS has been growing less than the 4-star and the 3-star. And instead, the 4-star and the 3-star are able to cope a little better with peak season. This has to do with high expectation, of course, that you generate when you are booking a 5-star property. But again, there are differences, because if we move to North America, Middle East, we will see that this effect for the 5-star, 3-star, and 4-star is a lot bigger. We said that the NPS is, in a way, a good indicator of the kind of ability to generate loyalty. And in this case, what we can see is that in the North American market, in the Middle East, the effect of seasonality can be really easily perceived by looking at like the drop in certain parts of the year, and then the ability to recover is driving the final gain at the end of the year, which is something that the Middle East have been able to do. So the Middle East has been growing, a solid growth. The North American market, for the second year in a row, on the contrary, has been suffering a lot from this seasonal effect. And this is why the NPS, especially for the 5-star, did not grow, which is in line what we saw at the department level, which is in line what we saw at GRI level for the North American market. So this is a way of stressing the fact that the North American market, as well as the Central American market and the South American market to a degree, behave in a different way. It is important for all the properties that are located there to know these trends and to understand how to beat them by, in a way, thwarting the clear effect of the seasonality that can be, in a way, make it difficult for you to gain market share, to gain GRI percentages or NPS value.
I just want to say, before wrapping it up now with NPS, I love seeing the 3-star have such high NPS throughout. I mean, for the North America region, a 65.6 for 3-star and NPS is really, really fantastic. Yeah. I think it goes with what we said earlier. it's a market that can continue, it's a segment of hotels that can continue to blow guests away because the value for money just goes so much further. So thank you so much, Bruno, for all the interesting insights, to everyone that attended, to anyone that's going to watch the recording after, to everyone that's going to share the recording as well. We hope you found it useful, more digestible, easy to understand. As I suggested, I highly recommend downloading the report, looking at your data compared to your region, and being able to really understand, are we overperforming? Are we outperforming? What can we do with Reviewpro? What can we do with our teams? What can we do with more training to really continue to elevate the guest experience? Because, I mean, if these were the numbers for 2026, I'm really curious what happens the rest of the year, what we're going to see next year. Is it going to stop? Is it going to continue to go up? And that's obviously up to everyone here in the room today and all the hoteliers around the world. I think we're going to wrap it up. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, please do so. My LinkedIn is there. Also, the link to the report and anything else we can help you with, please let us know. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope to see you at the next quarterly one in hopefully April. And other than that, please reach out to Bruno and myself with anything we can help with. Bruno, thank you so much for your insights, for preparing the report. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day.